Nikola Tesla was murdered by the FBI. At the age of 86, after a lifetime of service to humanity, the elderly Tesla was unceremoniously held down and suffocated to death in his bed by two FBI agents. I know the name of one of these alleged murderers, and in a few short minutes, so will you. President Trump has been very vocal about exposing the lies around the assassinations that have happened in this country's past, like JFK and Martin Luther King. And I see this as an opportunity to finally expose the truth about the wonderful humanitarian and inventor, Nikola Tesla. In the following video, you will see a casual talk being given by Dr. Andrea Puharich, who was an MKUltra scientist and expert on Nikola Tesla's technology, who knew many of Tesla's friends, financiers, and the murderers. In this talk given over 30 years ago, he is very plain about what actually happened with Tesla, and I've been able to independently verify these facts on my own. So let's take a look at what he has to say.
Oh, listen, I'll tell you one thing about Tesla. You won't believe this, but absolutely true. When I was writing my book about Tesla, which is the one that the FBI has censored, I can't get it out, one of the problems I wanted to find out was what Tesla died of. There's no record of what he died of, right? I happen to be working at NYU Medical Center, which is where the New York City Coroner's office is, and I used a lot of influential friends at the medical center, from the dean on down to other people, to try to get a look at Tesla's medical records. First place, the medical examiner would not talk to any of us, just on the phone. Secondly, he finally sent a letter. He said, our job is to protect the secrets of the dead. Here the guy's been dead like 40 years. So can you imagine a situation where you can't get a coroner's report and somebody's been dead that long? Now, what the hell are they trying to hide? Tesla died January 6, 1943. He died in his bed in the New York hotel. Immediately thereafter, a maid came in hours later and found out he was dead, and they called the FBI and the police and blah, blah, blah. Well, the point is that Tesla had given annual interviews to New York Times, New York Herald Tribune on his birthday about a new weapon this and a space shield and all kind of talking Star Wars stuff in those days, in the 20s and 30s. And I have some of his private correspondence. He actually offered these defense weapons to the United States, to Canada, to Great Britain, and he wanted like $7 million or something to build a whole goddamn thing to have a shield against any invading aircraft or rocket or whatever. So when he died, though, we were in the middle of a war, right, 1943, the FBI took all of his documents, and the reason I know this is years later I was asked by his executor, which is his nephew, who was the ambassador, Yugoslav ambassador to Washington, to try to get back the papers from the government of Tesla. And we worked at it for 2 years, and they used me because I could talk the lingo of these idiots in the government. And we got the stuff, and it was all shipped back and put in a museum in Belgrade. But the government, and I know the guy who was in charge, I know the two FBI guys who are still alive, believe it or not, and they gave me some of the papers that they stole themselves. I said, I like this paper. No. Bergstresser was the guy who was the FBI guy who entered the room along with another FBI guy, and they stole the papers on behalf of the government, and Bergstresser himself pocketed a number of interesting inventions, and Bergstresser himself gave me copies of these things that he had snitched. Well, one thing I know is there's some evidence that I have that Tesla just didn't die naturally. Those FBI guys smothered him to death.
Well, there you have it. But I have many details that weren't in this presentation. So now for the rest of the story. Puharich mentions the name of one of the FBI special agents who had cozied up to Tesla in his later years to gain his confidence and put him under surveillance. And that man's name was Ralph Bergstresser. Now we need to keep ourselves legally safe here, so all of this information about Bergstresser is alleged. It's just a story from Andrea Puharich. But Andrea Puharich was a medical doctor. He was fully aware of how to do an autopsy, how to read medical reports. And even today, when you go on Google, Google is running interference telling you that Tesla died of something completely different. And very obviously, the person who knew people who actually knew Tesla, the government's expert on Tesla, completely disagreed. Now, I find that very curious, and I also find it very curious that if you go to the FBI's Freedom of Information Act reading room, you'll see that Bergstresser doesn't show up anywhere. He doesn't show up in any of the Tesla papers that they have supposedly declassified, and those papers from Tesla look awfully sanitized. They even spin out fake stories about how it was Tesla's nephew who went in and took the papers before the FBI even got there, even though Tesla's nephew had to get Puharich's help to get those papers back to Serbia. So to me, my personal opinion and how I interpret this is that it looks like the FBI is just making things up to cover for themselves yet again. But just remember, if we listen to Google, the mainstream media, and the FBI, they'd be happy to tell you that JFK just died of a headache. Puharich alleges that after they murdered Tesla, suffocated him, they stole his papers, and Bergstresser actually kept a lot of these papers for himself, and that Bergstresser later gave Puharich access to some of these papers. Now, I'm no detective, but if somebody has evidence that was literally taken from the scene of the crime at the time of death, that's pretty compelling. But there's another interesting fact about Bergstresser. In the past, some of you have asked me about an interesting device called a Tesla purple plate. Now, I say device, but in reality, these are just metal plates that have a coating on one side that make them purple. And Bergstresser was the supposed inventor of these Tesla purple plates. And it's interesting because these Tesla purple plates literally don't do anything. I've personally had my hands on some and tested them myself, and they're no better than just a purple paperweight. Bergstresser is also the origin of the supposed Tesla quote that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, you need to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Well, there is no proof whatsoever that Tesla ever said this. It's in none of his papers, none of his books. Bergstresser claims that it's something that Tesla told him personally.
It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication. It never happened.
Now, it's not too hard to believe that Tesla might have said that quote, but what I do find very strange and sociopathic is that here you have Bergstresser making up Tesla lore and Tesla quotes, and making himself a nice little cottage industry selling Tesla-branded products that don't do jack shit after Tesla's death. And nowhere in any of this, except for Andrea Puharich, does anybody think to mention that Bergstresser was one of the FBI agents that was allegedly there when Tesla died. But it's really strange that after the drama with Tesla, Bergstresser would have the chutzpah to go out and try to market something with Tesla's name. And in case any of you are wondering why I would deem this information valid from Puharich, it's because Puharich was the expert on Tesla for so many years before Tesla ever became popular back in the 1990s. Puharich was very good friends with John Hayes Hammond Jr., who was actually an apprentice of Tesla's, and he was the son of John Hayes Hammond Sr., who was Tesla's financier. Now, very early on, decades before Tesla ever became popular, Puharich was running around places like Canada, checking out the secret Tesla facilities that were actually built there, including a Tesla magnifying transmitter that was built in a mine shaft. Tesla's technology never really died out. Many of his sexier inventions like particle beam weapons and energy weapons and mind control devices were actually developed by secretive groups, and Puharich was the consulting expert for those groups. Puharich was also the first person to tell the world about Tesla's death ray technology, his particle beam weapon, and he presented that at a 1984 Tesla conference in Colorado Springs. And the only way that he had access to that paper is because he got it from Bergstresser, who stole it from Tesla's room. Allegedly. So for as much of a son of a bitch as Puharich was with his mind control experimentation, we wouldn't know as much as we do about Tesla and what he actually achieved if it wasn't for Puharich's efforts. And as he mentions in the talk, he actually wrote a book about Tesla and all of this secret technology that was censored and kept out of press by the FBI. And this is one of the only remaining copies of that book that I got from the archive of somebody who lived with Puharich when he died under mysterious circumstances. He was pushed down the steps. And this was most likely Puharich's copy. There were many things done to Puharich to keep this book out of print back in the 1980s when he wrote it, but I got my hands on a copy and we later reprinted it as our Tesla technology book, and this is the first time that this book has ever come to print. And Puharich, despite being an Army intelligence doctor and MK-Ultra scientist, was himself put under surveillance by the National Reconnaissance Office and the NSA, specifically by a woman named Valerie Ransone. Together, they were doing mind control experiments on children to make them think that they were starseeds and space kids and can communicate with aliens. And why is this relevant? Because the thread behind all of it, the technology that would make mind control transmissions work, is Tesla's technology. Tesla, like a true visionary, did everything he could to help humanity and move it forward. And after his death, all the grubby little rat people just came out of the woodwork to crawl over his remains and pull up anything that they could to help further their own agendas. And after 80 years of lies, propaganda, and BS, I think he deserves better than that. So if you like the information that I just presented, please help me get this video seen. Feel free to send this off to anybody who you think would be interested, repost it, send it to Elon Musk, Kash Patel, Candace Owens, or anybody that's out there making a scene right now trying to expose things that have been hidden. If this information is correct, then tax dollars were spent to murder the man that could have given the whole world energy independence. And I like to think that the guy who owns a company that's named after Tesla and who is in charge of finding out all these big pork piles that we've been wasting money on, I think he'd probably like to know that. And if you're interested in the real secrets of Tesla's research and how it was used after his death in black projects all over the world, including modern mind control weapons and energy weapons, you'll want to check out our book, Tesla Technology. In the talk, Puharich also mentions the papers that he helped get back from the government to send to the museum in Serbia. And in a few weeks, we will be offering a 1,700-page set of those documents, those lectures, and patents from Tesla. So come check us out at the Museum of Tarot shop at www.museumoftarot.com for more rare reprint books that you can't get anywhere else, and our cutting-edge consciousness enhancement tools. We hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.